Hey everybody, and welcome back to my channel, and welcome to my very first Friday Reads, where I talk about everything that I read in the last week, let you know what I'm currently in the middle of, and also maybe talk about some of my plans for the coming week. And this one is actually going to be a little bit of a short week because I am transitioning from doing reading vlogs on Sunday to this Friday reads. So this one is going to cover Sunday through Thursday, but we still have things to talk about. So let's jump right in with Ceremony and Death by J.D. Robb. This is the fifth book in the In Death series, and it's an adult science fiction murder mystery series. We're following Eve Dallas, who's a homicide cop, so we just kind of tag along as she solves some really interesting murder cases, right? In this one, a cop is dead, and it all appears to be natural causes, but then a couple different sources lead Eve to believe that maybe it's not actually natural causes. And she starts to investigate. I DNF'd this. I DNF'd it around page 78, I want to say, because so as she starts looking into what happened with this cop, he was investigating another case on the side, and it had to do with his granddaughter, so he wasn't going through proper channels. But it involved a satanic cult. And as soon as we knew it was a satanic cult, alarm bells were already going off in my head, because I just don't, that doesn't work for me in any kind of meaningful way. I've listened to too much of You're Wrong About, which is a podcast who's kind of dissected the satanic panic and how basically it wasn't based in reality at all. And so when we got to this satanic cult, I think I was supposed to feel uneasy or scared or some concerned at least, and I felt none of these things. And so I did not like that, and I was going to push through, but then we met the leaders of the satanic cult, and I was just like, oh, you just used a whole bunch of completely ridiculous stereotypes to form these characters. And additionally, Eve was remarkably intolerant of belief systems, not just the satanic cult aspect of it, but also Wicca. And even her aide, who doesn't practice Wicca, is at least open to other things spiritually, and Eve is making fun of her. And I'm like, no, I am out. Between the satanic cult, the satanic leaders being just gigantic stereotypes, and Eve being just a jerk in this, I don't need to read it. So I went ahead and DNF'd it, which is interesting because now this series has two strikes against it, because the last book 4, I did not like and ended up giving 2 stars to, which is a really, really low rating for me. And then I DNF'd this one. So I'm going to give it one more try, but if book 6 does not pull through, I might be done with this series. So that happened. And then I was like, okay, I'll try Unravel the Dusk by Elizabeth Lim. I'll just finish out this duology. It's this because it's the second book in the Blood of Stars duology. So this duology is a young adult retelling of Mulan. We're following our main character of Maya. In the first book, Maya is part of a family that has a family business that's a tailoring shop, but because of gender norms and that kind of thing, Maya herself can never actually be a tailor. She can only be a seamstress, which is much lower rung kind of thing. But in that first book, Maya's father is forced to go to the palace to compete to be the imperial tailor, and Maya ends up disguising herself to go in her father's place so that she can potentially be the imperial tailor and kind of get the recognition for being a tailor that she's always wanted and just can't get for herself. And the story goes from there. Now, overall, I liked Spin the Dawn, which is the first book, but I didn't love it, and I recognized that it wasn't really for me, and there were some serious problems with it. And those serious problems meant that this book didn't work for me. So I actually DNF'd this around page 58, I think. Because what ended up happening in Spin the Dawn, it was an interesting story, but we didn't get much with the characters. There wasn't a ton of character development. So I didn't really care about Maya or basically any of the characters. And so when we opened up on this book, and it's taking place immediately after the events of the first book, and Maya's in this situation where there's so many problems that she has to solve very, very quickly, I did not care. I didn't care for her. I didn't care that she had all these problems going on. I really didn't care how she was going to solve them. And in addition, the problems and the situations that she was finding herself in just felt a little weird and didn't quite make sense. Like, it felt like I was being told a story rather than having it be very, very logical, if that makes sense. And so, yeah, I just could not get into this, and I put it down. And it wasn't even that I was like, I didn't think to pick it back up. It's that I thought to pick it back up and I didn't want to. I was like, okay, so this is good. I should probably just DNF this. So I did, which is very sad, but okay. So with intermixed with all of that, I did actually pick up some graphic novels. I read the first 3 volumes of Lumberjanes. So volume 1 is Beware the Kitten Holy. Volume 2 is Friendship to the Max. And then volume 3, I do not remember the title of volume 3, but this covers the first 12 issues of Lumberjanes. And I wanted to get back into this because I never actually finished the series. But this is a kids, honestly, it's for kids, graphic novel series where we're following these 5 girls that are at Lumberjanes camp, which is definitely a take on like Girl Scouts, but it's a little bit more hardcore than Girl Scouts. And they just get into these absolutely wacky adventures. And they're really easy to read. I generally like the drawing style that is in each of these books. Obviously, I don't have a physical copy, so I can't show you the illustrations, but I thought that it worked really well. However, obviously, this is meant for kids, and they're getting into these really wacky kind of situations, which is a style of storytelling which I think works really, really well for kids and doesn't work well for me anymore. So the first 2 volumes especially, I kind of struggled with because I just recognized this is good for the intended audience, but it's not me anymore. And then I thought, okay, I'm just going to read volume 3 just to be sure. And if it's the same way, then I'm going to go ahead and just like DNF this series because it's just not for me anymore. But then I read volume 3 and I liked it better than I liked the first 2. So now I don't know. Yeah, it's complicated. I mean, I like it. I love the friendship between the different girls and like how it's a group of 5, and I think that it's very realistic in how it portrays this group of 5 because there's April and Joe who have been friends for a really long time, and so they're clearly best friends. And then there's Mal and Molly, and they're clearly like, if they're, I don't know if they're officially like a couple yet or if it's just that's definitely where they're headed to. And so they clearly spend a lot of time too. And then there's Ripley, but they also clearly like interact with as a group. Like they're very clearly friends. So that really interesting group dynamic of, yes, there's 5 of them, but sometimes they pair off in these pretty normal ways. Like I found that to be really realistic, and I did actually like watching that. And so far, I really enjoyed being able to see the different strengths that each character has, even as maybe they run into situations where they are not good in it, if that makes sense. Like, you know, where one person is like, for example, Molly is really good at anagrams, but she's not necessarily good at a lot of the other stuff that like they had to do. Oh. Explaining this is really, really hard without spoiling anything. But like, I like the fact that each person has their moment to shine, and each person has a moment where they're just not that good, or they're scared or whatever, and they need the encouragement from the rest of the group to be able to do it. And I really just like that. And with this third book, the reason that I ended up having, like, doing a little bit better with it is because it had a coherent storyline between the 4 issues. And even though it was still kind of wacky, it felt like it was more logical in its wackiness. So I wasn't with the other books, it was like, I don't know where you're going, and they'd be like, this wacky thing, other thing happened, and I was like, okay, there's no way I could have guessed that. And I don't necessarily love that. And with this third volume, it felt, again, like there was more of a logical progression. So what I'm going to end up doing is reading volume 4 and seeing how it goes and seeing how I feel afterwards. So now we are into the things that I am in the middle of. It's only one this week, and that is A Natural History of Dragons, a memoir by Lady Trent by Marie Brennan. And this is exactly what it sounds like. It is a fictional memoir by Lady Trent, who is like the country's foremost expert on dragons, really kind of broke open this specific field. And I'm 20 pages in, so I'm not very far at all, but I'm really excited. I've always been intrigued by this, and I really, like, it's one of those things where, like, the longer it's been on my TBR shelf, the more intrigued I've been about it. And I will say, from the first 20 pages, I don't necessarily love the writing style. It's a little stylistic and, like, old-fashioned, but the premise of this, the setup of it, has already got me hooked, so I am very excited to continue reading it. So next week, obviously, I want to finish A Natural History of Dragons. I also have on hold The Black God's Drums by P. Jelly Clark. I don't know when that's going to come through. I'm hoping next week. I want to read volume 4 of Lumberjanes at least, and then I have 2 other books that I'm looking at, and the first is Not Your Sidekick by C.B. Lee, and the second is The Binding by Bridget Collins. Both of these are library books that I'm going to need to take back soon, but also both of them are very high up on my Goodreads TBR list, which is kind of why I want to get to them. So we shall see. But those are the ones that are the most likely to appear next week. And that is it. That's everything I've read. That's what I'm in the middle of. That's what I plan to read next week. If you have any thoughts or feelings about anything that I talked about this week, or you just want to let me know what you've been reading, leave me a comment down below. But that is all I have for this video. So if you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you want to. And until next time, have happy reading, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!